So, what if I told you that a single leaked text message, never meant for the public, could decide whether a man lives or dies? That one digital conversation could outweigh fingerprints, DNA, or even eyewitness testimony. Picture this, an entire trial hanging on words typed late at night, words that might not have even belonged to the accused. Imagine private chats suddenly plastered across every screen in America, twisting millions of opinions before a jury even sat down. And here's the twist. These weren't just any texts. They hinted at revenge, betrayal, and even the involvement of someone powerful enough to stay hidden. Some claim the screenshots were altered, others whisper they were planted, and a few even suggest the leak itself was a setup designed to destroy Robinson before he ever set foot in court. And this is where the story gets chilling, because if those messages are real, they reveal intent. But if they're fake, they expose corruption at the highest level. So, what if I told you this case didn't start in the courtroom, but on a quiet street where a single gunshot changed everything? A shot that echoed across America and pulled one of its most controversial names, Charlie Kirk, into a headline no one expected. The day Kirk was shot, people thought it was a political stunt, a staged attack, a conspiracy. But here's the truth. It wasn't staged. It was bloody, chaotic, and real. And standing at the center of it all was Tyler Robinson, a man who would soon become the most hated and most doubted figure in the nation. The night was calm until it wasn't. When the crack of a rifle cut through the air, Kirk collapsed. Panic erupted. Sirens wailed. He was known for his voice, his courage, his relentless pursuit of justice. But yesterday, Charlie Kirk's story took a terrifying turn. Shot in broad daylight, this American activist's fight for change now hangs between life and death. But here's the question. Was this just a random act of violence? Or was it something far darker? He was answering a question in front of a crowd, calm and steady, the way he always did. One answer, applause. Then came the second question, and before he could speak, a crack split the air. A gunshot, a scream. America froze. Charlie Kirk, the activist whose voice never trembled, had just been silenced in the most violent way. But was this the end of his story, or the start of something far bigger? Don't forget to subscribe and like this video, because what you're about to hear may change the way you see this tragedy forever. Charlie Kirk's shooting wasn't random. Witnesses describe it like a scene from a nightmare. He stood on stage, speaking truth, when a bullet tore through the moment. Panic erupted, people ducked, chaos spread. Yet one detail makes it clear this wasn't a warning shot. It was meant to end him, and America wants to know who pulled the trigger and why. Here is the twist. The FBI has now released chilling footage. The suspect didn't just vanish into the crowd. He fled with precision, scaling a rooftop before disappearing into the woods. Cameras caught him wearing a t-shirt printed with the American flag and eagle, paired with a baseball cap pulled low over his eyes. This wasn't a random drifter. This was a man who planned his escape. The FBI isn't staying quiet. They've asked the public for help identifying the suspect. They've released his approximate age, his possible date of birth, and details from witnesses who swear they recognized him. America now holds its breath, waiting to see if someone will pick up the phone, call the tip line, and bring this suspect's freedom to an end. But let's step back. Who was Charlie Kirk, really? Born in a working-class family, Charles didn't have much. He grew up seeing neighbors lose their jobs, families broken by addiction, and communities ignored by those in power. Instead of turning bitter, he turned loud. He marched, he wrote, he rallied. And slowly, the young man from nowhere became one of the most recognized faces in American activism. He was fearless. He wore no mask, no disguise, no double life. He looked into cameras and said what others were afraid to whisper. That's why thousands followed him, and why just as many wanted him gone. Charles used to laugh off the threats, saying, "If they come for me, they only prove my point." Yesterday, those words came true. Doctors now fight to undo what a single bullet tried to end. In the hospital, his family keeps watch, while outside, crowds gather with candles. Social media bleeds with grief. Hashtags climb. His face, his speeches, his warnings, they spread faster than ever. Charles once said, "I'm only a vessel. But now, his vessel has become a monument. Here's another twist. The suspect wasn't sloppy. He left no fingerprints, no phone, no trace. Only his clothes, his face half hidden, and his daring escape across that rooftop. The FBI says he may have been trained, possibly military, possibly extremist. They're not just chasing a man. They're chasing a ghost in broad daylight. But why target Charles? The answer may lie in the hours before the attack. Sources close to him revealed that Charles was preparing to release documents. Names, numbers, proof of corruption that could have shaken institutions. Was this why he was silenced? Did the shooter carry not just a gun, but the mission to keep those secrets buried? Trump said Charlie Kirk was a great guy from top to bottom and asked people to pray for him, calling the shooting a dark moment for America. He described Kirk as a martyr for truth and freedom and blamed the radical left for fueling hostility. He also said he spoke with Kirk's widow Erica, calling her devastated, and announced that Kirk would be posthumously awarded the Presidential Medal of Freedom. Trump ordered flags lowered to half-staff in Kirk's honor. The public demands justice. Leaders issue statements. Streets buzz with theories. Some say it was personal. Others whisper it was political. But for most Americans, it doesn't matter who ordered it. What matters is that a man who spoke for the people was nearly destroyed in front of them. He announced that Charlie Kirk would be posthumously awarded the Presidential Medal of Freedom, calling him a voice of truth and influence for young Americans. Trump framed it as the nation's highest way of honoring his legacy, saying that Kirk's courage and activism should never be forgotten. Charles's activism had always drawn enemies. He questioned power in ways that left scars. He once told a crowd, "They don't fear me. They fear what I make you see." Yesterday, that fear turned into a bullet. And now, every American is left asking, is the truth still safe in this country, or is it hunted down in public squares? The FBI press briefing painted a picture of urgency. "We need the public's help," they said, showing the footage frame by frame. The man on the rooftop, the jump into the trees, the baseball cap, the American flag on his shirt, the eagle on his chest, a symbol twisted into violence. America stared at the screen and shuddered. Inside the hospital, Charles remains under heavy guard. His condition is critical but stable. Doctors say it's too soon to tell if he will make a full recovery. Friends and supporters pray, hoping his story doesn't end on a hospital bed. They want the ending to be different. They want him to rise again. But even if he survives, questions remain. Who sent the shooter? Was he acting alone? And more chillingly, what if he isn't caught? What if the man in the eagle shirt continues to walk free, blending into crowds, laughing at a nation scrambling for justice? The twist deepens. Some witnesses swear the shooter wasn't a stranger. They claim he once attended rallies, stood in the back, listening. If true, Charles may have been betrayed not by an enemy from afar, but by someone who once cheered for him. Trust turned to treachery. Applause turned to silence. And that brings us here. A nation holding its breath. An activist in a hospital bed. An FBI manhunt racing against time. And a shooter who thought he could vanish, leaving only his flag, his eagle, and his shadow behind. But America doesn't forget. And America doesn't forgive. Charlie Kirk's story isn't just about one man. It's about every voice that dares to rise, every truth that refuses to hide. His blood is now ink, writing a chapter America never wanted to read, but cannot turn away from. So we ask, will justice be served? Will the man in the baseball cap be caught, or will he walk free on this earth, laughing at the system, at the people, at the very freedom Charlie Kirk lived for? This isn't just a case. This is a test of America's promise. And until that man is found, Charles's silence will thunder louder than any speech he ever gave. Here is the final twist. The bullet tried to stop Charlie Kirk, but instead, it made him immortal. Whether in life or legacy, his voice is no longer just his. It belongs to every American waiting, watching, demanding justice. Have you seen the shooter? Stay updated.
Do you know how many mass shooters there have been in America over the last 10 years?
Counting or not counting gang violence?
Great.
Governor. Bo Mason, Commissioner for the Utah Department of Public Safety. If you look up to the top left, you'll see the building where the shooter was proned out in the top left corner. We'll go ahead and play that video and I'll narrate it as we walk through that. So here you see the suspect ran behind that upper...
A new name suddenly burst into the case: Lance Twiggs. At first, it looked like the investigation had found another suspect, maybe even a hidden accomplice in the assassination of Charlie Kirk. His name appeared in documents, neighbors whispered, and for a moment the spotlight shifted. But here's where it gets chilling. Twiggs wasn't the killer. He wasn't plotting anything. He was just a roommate. Yet inside that apartment, he stumbled upon something far darker: messages, secrets, and confessions that forced him straight into the FBI's hands. Because the truth wasn't about Twiggs at all. It was about Tyler Robinson's hidden life. A life tangled in secrecy, shame, and a relationship he fought desperately to keep out of the public eye. Robinson had been living with a transgender partner, a relationship that may have become the spark, the breaking point, the buried motive behind his deadly act. Stay with me until the end, because once these pieces fall into place, the chilling mystery of what really drove Tyler Robinson to pull the trigger will leave you questioning everything. The story opens with a twist that few saw coming. Tyler Robinson, just 22 years old, has been unmasked as the alleged assassin of conservative activist Charlie Kirk. He wasn't a hardened criminal or a familiar name in extremist circles. Instead, he was a quiet Utah kid, an apprentice electrician, living in a town of red hills and Mormon churches. And yet, investigators say his life was quietly drifting toward violence. The chilling part is that Robinson's descent didn't happen overnight. Friends and family recalled moments where he spoke with bitterness about Kirk, calling him full of hate and spreading hate. At a family dinner before the shooting, his words carried weight, anger simmering just beneath the surface. Neighbors later admitted they felt something was off, noticing strange cars and strangers around his place. The fuse had been lit. When police photos of the suspected shooter were released, it was Robinson's own father who made the devastating connection. He saw the familiar face, and suspicion became certainty. Authorities moved quickly, following the family's tip. But Robinson wasn't ready to give in. He reportedly told a law enforcement source he would rather kill myself than turn myself in, setting the stage for a tense showdown. Investigators soon uncovered another player in this unfolding story: Robinson's roommate, 22-year-old Lance Twiggs. Known on TikTok as a wannabe gamer, Twiggs was active online, posting about his dreams of esports. But after the shooting, his role changed dramatically. He reportedly shared text messages with the FBI that hinted Robinson was trying to hide the firearm used in the attack. Then came a revelation that set headlines ablaze. Reports emerged that Robinson had been living with a transgender partner in the middle of a gender transition. This individual, unnamed publicly, is said to be fully cooperating with the FBI. But here's the mystery. Was this the same person as Twiggs? Social media connected the dots, but officials have not confirmed it. The ambiguity only deepened the intrigue. Neighbors painted a very different picture of the Robinson family. They described them as good people, members of the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints, who moved to Washington County for its religious and conservative values. But when agents swarmed the home, that image cracked. One neighbor told reporters, "They did not give off a good vibe," referring to visitors seen weeks before the shooting. Robinson himself appeared, at least on paper, as an ordinary young man. He attended Utah State University for a semester before dropping out, later enrolling in an apprenticeship at Dixie Technical College. No arrests, no prior trouble with the law. He was a registered voter with no political affiliation. Yet investigators now believe he had grown more political in recent months, more outspoken, more extreme. On Discord, his presence became a point of scrutiny. Officials confirmed he had an account but emphasized there was no sign of violent planning there. Instead, messages tied to him came secondhand, with roommates repeating what Robinson allegedly left behind in a note. These fragments, hints, confessions, ramblings, painted a picture of a young man unraveling, though never fully revealing why Kirk became his target. The capture itself felt inevitable once the pieces aligned. His father's recognition, his friend's tip-off, and Twig's cooperation with the FBI boxed Robinson in. In one chilling moment, he told a confidant he had been involved in the shooting, a slip that carried consequences. The FBI tightened its net, and Robinson, cornered, finally fell into custody. He now sits in jail without bail, refusing to speak. The aftermath spread like wildfire. Charlie Kirk's wife, Erica, has prepared to give her first public speech since losing her husband. Turning Point USA announced she would address supporters at 8:15 p.m., a moment that promises both grief and defiance. Her voice will join millions already mourning, demanding answers and searching for meaning in what feels like senseless violence. Utah Governor Spencer Cox also weighed in, standing before cameras at a late-night press conference. "There is one person responsible for what happened here," he said firmly, "and that person is in custody." But then came the sobering words. "At some point, we have to find an off-ramp, or it's going to get much, much worse." The killing had become a symbol of America's deeper fractures. What makes this case so haunting is not just the act itself, but how ordinary the suspect appeared until the moment he wasn't. A dropout, a technical student, a son in a religious household. No one foresaw that this same young man would allegedly step into a rally hall with deadly intent. The transformation feels less like a sudden snap and more like a slow erosion, a fuse quietly burning down. The role of his roommates remains one of the most intriguing threads. Lance Twiggs, who once seemed nothing more than a gamer chasing clout on TikTok, became a linchpin in the investigation. His text messages to the FBI, recounting Robinson's words about hiding the weapon, may have sealed the case. Yet the uncertainty around his identity, roommate, partner, witness, still clouds the narrative. Meanwhile, neighbors wrestle with disbelief. Some recall family barbecues and a polite young man. Others remember seeing outsiders, cars with strange plates, and an energy that didn't feel right. The community of Washington, Utah, a town of 28,000, now finds itself at the center of a national story, struggling to reconcile the boy they thought they knew with the man in headlines. The fuse wasn't just burning at home. At that family dinner, when Robinson railed against Kirk, it became clear he was absorbing more than simple disagreements. His comments echoed an ideology sharper and more dangerous than before. Governor Cox would later confirm Robinson had been deeply indoctrinated in leftist ideology. For investigators, this ideology became a central question. Why Kirk? Why him? Why then? These are the questions haunting investigators, journalists, and grieving families alike. Some point to Robinson's growing political anger, others to his online environment, others still to personal turmoil. His silence in custody leaves the motive open, a chilling void where answers should be. The silence itself feels like one last act of defiance. In the aftermath, the FBI and local law enforcement have pieced together fragments. A father's tip, a friend's warning, a roommate's messages, and a transgender partner's cooperation. Each piece fits, but the picture remains incomplete. The threads point toward obsession, ideology, and discontent, but the spark that set it ablaze remains elusive. Now, Robinson awaits his first court appearance, shackled and silent. His refusal to cooperate frustrates investigators, but it also fuels the mystery. Without his words, the story is left to evidence, witnesses, and speculation. What he carried inside his mind in the hours before pulling the trigger may never be fully known. The tragedy has left scars on all sides. Erica Kirk's grief, a community's shock, a family's shame, and a nation's unease. What began as a rally turned into a crime scene, a symbol of division, and a grim reminder of how quickly violence can erupt. The aftermath is not just about one man or one shot, but about a nation struggling with the cost of its own fractured discourse. And so the burning fuse has burned out, but the smoke has not cleared. The suspect sits in silence, the widow prepares to speak, and investigators sift through lives shattered in seconds. What pushed Tyler Robinson to kill? Was it ideology, resentment, influence, or something darker inside? The answers may lie buried with him, And that uncertainty is perhaps the most chilling part of all.
Calling case 251403576, State of Utah versus Tyler James Robinson. Could you state your name?
Tyler James Robinson.
So, Mr. Robinson, you have a right to an attorney. If you cannot afford one, the court can appoint an attorney to represent you.
What if I told you the truth about Charlie Kirk's assassination isn't what you've been told? Imagine this, a killer confessing in real time inside a Discord chat, a handwritten note tucked under a keyboard, and a man who walks up to police screaming, "I shot him, now shoot me," even though he has no weapon. It sounds like the start of a twisted movie, but this isn't fiction. It's real, and it's darker than anyone expected. At first glance, it looked simple. A student, Tyler Robinson, politically active, leaning left, openly supporting LGBTQ rights. He began dating his roommate, a transgender student named Lance Twiggy. On the outside, it seemed like nothing more than a college romance. But then came the messages, private words between Robinson and Twiggy that hinted at something so chilling it would drag both of them into the middle of a nightmare. Utah prosecutors are now seeking the death penalty for Robinson. And to prove their case, they read out messages where he openly admits his guilt. "I had the opportunity to take out Charlie Kirk," Robinson wrote, "and I took it." But buried inside that same transcript was something else. A line that makes you question everything you thought you knew about this case. Because suddenly, another name appears. George Zinn, a man who seemed to materialize out of nowhere. Right after the shots rang out, he ran up to officers, shouting, "I did it! I'm the one! Shoot me now!" But there was no weapon. No evidence, just chaos. And then, when investigators checked his phone, the story swerved into a new nightmare. Illegal content so disturbing the FBI had to step in. Who was this man? Why did he claim responsibility? And most importantly, was he part of a plan to cover for Robinson? Or just another broken pawn in a game no one understands? The story only gets stranger. Hidden beneath a keyboard in Robinson's room was a note. It read, "I had the opportunity to take out Charlie Kirk, and I'm going to take it." His roommate, Twiggy, saw the note and messaged him in panic. "You're joking, right?" Robinson's reply, "I am still okay, my love." Calm, collected, and utterly convinced no one would ever connect the dots. But Robinson left a trail of mistakes. The rifle abandoned in the woods. Surveillance footage showing his limp. Messages he thought would stay private forever. At one point, he even admitted, "I hope to keep this secret until I died of old age." Think about that. He really believed he could kill, confess to his lover, and still take the secret to his grave decades later. And yet, somehow, the more he confessed, the messier it got. In those private texts, Robinson revealed that police had grabbed some crazy old dude, a direct reference to Zinn. He told his roommate, "They interrogated someone in similar clothing. I had planned to grab my rifle later, but the area was locked down." Was Zinn just a coincidence? Or was he a diversion planted to take the fall? Robinson's messages paint the picture of someone sloppy but chillingly self-aware. He worried about fingerprints on the rifle. He admitted to hiding it in a bush where he changed clothes. He feared his father would discover Grandpa's gun was missing. In his own words, he was terrified of losing a rifle that wasn't even his, while confessing to a murder that would destroy his own life. And yet, his obsession wasn't only with the act itself. He bragged about the weapon, about engraving bullets, about the scope on the rifle. He joked about seeing the news footage, even describing how Kirk's body reacted to the shot, as though it was a twisted validation of his actions. It was as if the killing had turned into a performance, one he thought only his lover would ever see. But Lance Twiggy's reaction in those texts tells a different story. Panic, shock, repeatedly asking, "You weren't the one who did it, right?" And yet Robinson doubled down. "I am. I'm sorry." The roommate, trapped in disbelief, became the unwilling witness to every confession. Meanwhile, Robinson's political leanings became a weapon in the media narrative. Some claimed he was a conservative radical. Others painted him as a leftist extremist. The truth? He was neither and both. A young man pulled into online subcultures, Discord servers, and echo chambers that warped his reality until murder seemed like a solution. And while Robinson confessed in private, he plotted in detail. "If I can grab the rifle unseen, I'll have left no evidence," he wrote. "I'll attempt to retrieve it again. Hopefully they've moved on." But investigators already knew. They had the transcripts. They had the note. They had the panic of his lover caught in text form, time-stamped forever. Then comes the strangest twist of all, George Zinn's confession. Remember, he begged officers to shoot him. He admitted to being the shooter even as he stood there unarmed. Later, he claimed he did it to draw attention away from the real killer. Why would someone volunteer to be the fall guy? Was he suicidal? Mentally unstable? Or was he deliberately protecting Robinson? To make it darker, when agents looked deeper into Zinn's background, they uncovered something unthinkable, a hidden life of crimes against children. Material so vile it shifted the entire focus of the investigation. Suddenly, the question wasn't just who pulled the trigger, but how many dangerous people were circling around this case from the very beginning. And yet, in the middle of this chaos, Robinson still thought he could control the story. He begged his roommate not to talk to the media. He warned him to stay silent if questioned. He even tried to prepare an exit, turning himself in through a neighbor who worked as a deputy. It was as if he knew the clock was ticking and the walls were closing in. By the time prosecutors laid out the evidence, 2 lives were destroyed. Charlie Kirk, a public figure whose voice was silenced in a split second, and Tyler Robinson, a young man who went from student to assassin, from freedom to death row, in less than a week of planning. And yet, questions remain unanswered. Who exactly was George Zinn? Was he a willing distraction? A disturbed man who wanted to take credit for something he didn't do? Or part of something larger we haven't yet uncovered? Even now, no one has given a clear answer. What we do know is this: Robinson confessed to his lover. He left behind a note. He admitted it all in private chats. And still, he believed he could keep it secret until his old age. That level of delusion, of arrogance, is what makes this case not just tragic, but unforgettable. Because in the end, this wasn't just about politics or ideology or even identity. It was about how far a human being can spiral when reality breaks. When lies, propaganda, and obsession consume someone until murder feels like destiny. So I'll ask you, was Tyler Robinson a monster created by his own choices? Or was he a pawn in something much bigger, hidden beneath layers of confusion and misdirection? Whatever the answer, one truth is clear. This case isn't just about the death of one man. It's about the death of reason. The kind of story that forces us to question what's real, who we can trust, and just how fragile the line between sanity and madness really is.
I am filing a criminal information charging Tyler James Robinson, age 22, with the following crimes. Count 1, aggravated murder, a capital offense. Count 2, felony discharge of a firearm causing serious bodily injury, a first-degree felony. The state is also charging defendant with count 3, obstruction of justice, a second-degree felony for moving and concealing the rifle used in the shooting. Count 4, obstruction of justice, a second-degree felony for disposing the clothing he wore during the shooting. Count 5, witness tampering, a third-degree felony for directing his roommate to delete his incriminating texts. Count 6, witness tampering, a third-degree felony for directing his roommate to stay silent if police questioned him. And count 7, commission of a violent offense in the presence of a child, a Class A misdemeanor. Also, following the press conference, I am filing a notice of intent to seek the death penalty.